Welcome back to this edition of Grizzlies Daily. I'm your host, Melek. And before we get into it, I just want to shout out Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. Underdog Fantasy is where you can play and win a good amount of money. You can get $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. I use Underdog all the time. Me and my family do. And it's very fun to play. You just scan this QR code right here. Use promo code BasketballFan to take advantage of this very good deal. Like I said, thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into the actual episode. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I don't really have much. I'm gonna just say it. I don't really got much. So let's talk about some of the trade rumors that's going on and everything that's happening around the league and how it ties to the Grizzlies. Obviously, the Karl Anthony Towns news. I already gave my opinion on that. I let me clarify my thoughts on this because I felt like what I said kind of didn't do justice to the whole thing. So what I meant to say is, at the end of the day, if the Grizzlies were to trade Jaren Jackson Jr. for Karl Anthony Towns, I would not mind that. I wouldn't mind it happening at all. On the other hand, I think you could get better for Jaren. If I'm being real, I just don't think it's in the form of Karl Anthony Towns. Mostly because Karl Anthony Towns, and like I said, this is what I am hearing from Knicks fans that, they have their frustrations with Karl Anthony Towns. And the only reason they're really willing to move on from him is, just this idea that, they'll be better with it, with or without him. Because obviously the Knicks are going to try to go after guys like Giannis or something, a big star. That's just what they do. So, yeah, it's like one of those things where it's like, you really don't know until it actually happens. I just think it's a bit of a gamble with Karl Anthony Towns per se. I don't know. It's just hard for me to explain. I really don't know how to explain it to you guys. But as far as other rumors go, I still have a fan idea of trading for a guy like Trey Murphy. The reason I say that, he's a good scorer that, can really, really find his way on the court, find his own shot, drive, shoot the ball great. He has the length, so he's providing you good defense. He's a guy that, can give you a good 25 to 30 when he actually, gets the shot going. So I wouldn't mind us going after a guy like him. And the reason I say that is because you have the idea that Jonathan Kuminga is on the market, but right now it's just not. It's not. It's. I don't know what's going on there. Obviously, he's playing because Jimmy Butler's hurt. In his first game back, he had 20 on great efficiency. But something that really struck me from Mike Dunleavy, the Warriors GM, he said he basically kind of talked about his he talked about Kuminga's trade market, and basically he said that you got to have demand to get traded, or demand to trade, which tells me that no other teams making calls for Jonathan Kuminga. Kleiman, make the call. Make the call. The Warriors, I'm telling you right now, the Warriors are going to get desperate. Steph is getting younger. Draymond's impact isn't really the same as it was before. They're going to get desperate. I think there's a way that Zach Kleiman can somehow find a way to still get Jonathan Kuminga, keep a good majority of the good guys on the roster, and still end up better than the Warriors. That's just me. So I think it's definitely possible. But yeah, guys like guys like Trey Murphy, I think I'm a big fan of. Obviously, we talked about Nick Claxton and Jared Allen. Haven't really seen much traction. When it comes to the Karl Anthony Towns news, like I say, everything that I'm saying is speculation. So only time will tell. We just have to wait and see. That's really all it is. Now, let's talk about the actual Grizzlies themselves. Looking at the injury report for this game, not many names on here, which is good. It's only 4 names, and those are the guys that we already knew were out, which were Brandon Clark, Zach Edey, Ty Jerome, and Scottie Pippen Jr. Now, when it comes to Ty Jerome, we're in that 9-week window to where he should be reevaluated. So we should be seeing something soon. We should see something soon. I've been seeing a couple articles saying there's a possibility that Ty Jerome could come back Friday, but I just don't think that happens. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think that happens. But we have been hearing him on the court. You know, obviously Easlow said he's been ramping up the on-court practicing and stuff like that. So it's definitely possible that we could see Ty Jerome come back either Friday, Sunday at most, or sometime next week. I think that's definitely possible. Now, obviously, starting off, I think you have Ty Jerome come off the bench, get adjusted to the game speed, things like that. He's a guy. He's very good at what he does, so it's not going to take long for him to get adjusted again. But I think once he gets up to that point, I think we start exploring the options of including Ty Jerome in the starting line. The reason I say that is because you have Jalen Wells who's not really playing good. And I'm going to give two sides to this. You have Jalen Wells who's not really playing good, not really playing the best. You got to have somebody who's more established, can knock down the three and things like that. Now, on the other side, Ty Jerome probably is best off the bench because of the defensive factor. Not saying he's a terrible defender. He's not. He's just not the greatest. I mean, you look at Ty Jerome, his career stats, he's just not known as a defender. He barely averages a steal a game. So, not the biggest name when it comes to defense, but I mean, doesn't hurt to try it. I would say, like, at some point, I would like to see that lineup at some point. Because, I mean, Jerome's 6'5". It's not super short, but I think it's worth at least trying, just seeing, how it works and things like that. But other than that, I don't necessarily hate the idea. I think the Grizzlies come back once fully healthy, because obviously you got Scottie Pippen Jr. is going to come back in a month and a half. Brandon Clark, if he's still on the roster, comes back in a month and a half. Edie comes back towards the end of the year. It just depends all on where the Grizzlies are standing at that point. But it's a possibility that we could see a fully or remotely healthy Grizzlies team by the end of the year, and somewhat going into the play-in at this rate. So it's a possibility. Like I said, right now they're at 10, and they have the chance to go back up to the. They're at 11. They have a chance to go back up to the 10th spot. And like I said, y'all, the West is wide open. I kid y'all not. Like, literally, Minnesota is down to the play-in, and they were just a top 4 seed. Like, the West is wide open this year. So as long as the Grizzlies can keep up and Easlow can figure the roster out, there's a possibility that we could see a late push for the Grizzlies going into the play-in. Now, real quick, before we get into the next segment, I am struggling to find my items. Here we are. Let's talk about Underdog Fantasy, the sponsor of this video. Fast breaks, buzzer beaters, and block parties are back. Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action. And playing on Underdog is actually very easy. You pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like points, rebounds, steals, and more. Get your picks right, you could win up to 5,000 times your cash. This week on Underdog, specifically today, we're gonna keep it simple and look at the Atlanta Hawks and Memphis Grizzlies game later tonight at the FedEx Forum. This game, I have Jalen Johnson high. I got Jalen Johnson higher on points, rebounds, assists. The line is at 40.5. I think he's gonna get higher than that. And then I have Cam Spencer higher than 4.5 assists. Those are my two plays for today. You download the Underdog app today and use promo code BasketballFan to score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. Once again, this promo code BasketballFan. You can also scan the QR code that's right here on the right side of your screen. And Underdog is where you make picks, you win money. So shout out to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. Once again, use that QR code to sign up and take advantage of this very, very good deal.
Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/play and get terms DFSTML for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-878 or text HOMI 467-369.
All right, now let's get straight into it again. The Grizzlies, like I said, they do host the Hawks tonight. Ja is active. Like I said, the injury report is very, very small. The only thing on this, Santi, is questionable. Now, I'm not going to lie. This Hawks team, they are figuring things out, obviously, post-Trae Young now. The thing that really gets me about this Hawks team, obviously, they're still figuring things out. The thing is about this Hawks, they aren't the greatest team when it comes to threes, but they gonna let it fly. That is one thing. And another thing about this game, Jalen Johnson. Obviously, we just talked about him in the underdog part. He is going to be a challenge. He's a guy that can literally do it all. He is starting to become a triple-double machine. He's a guy that can do it all and will do it all for the Hawks. You literally have to get to a point where you have to take away his transition offense. He is a guy that will destroy you in that category. Shooting, not really the greatest, but still something to watch out for. It's just you really have to control him. If you don't, you're in for a long, long game. Same with Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He's very good at playmaking, very good at shooting. Definitely somebody you got to watch out for. Definitely play him off the screen heavy. Don't see a reason why he should be open. You got guys like C.J. McCollum, who for some reason always plays good against the Grizzlies. And then Onyeka Okongwu. He's going to be a rebounding machine for this game. No other way to put it. So the Grizzlies are going to have their handful. Wouldn't be surprised if we see a much bigger lineup in this game. Obviously, a Jaren and Jock combo, and then maybe Santi comes off the bench. I don't know. But the Grizzlies are going to have a handful for this one. But like I said, they keep the offense going. Turnovers low. Limit the second chances from the Hawks. They're in a good position to win this game and obviously get to that 20, closer to that 20 win mark before the end of the month. Like I said, just gotta execute. That's literally all it is. But real quick before we get out of here, do want to read some of y'all's comments. We got a few, so I'll actually be able to get through all of these, I think. So let's talk about it. First comment says, can Karl-Anthony Towns play the 4? I know Minnesota tried this with Gobert and Cat. I'm not sure if that was working or not. The only way I think a Cat trade should be made is if Cat can play the 4 next to Edie. Can we get a statement from Kleiman about where he sees the team right now? If we're not tanking, we are not trying to improve the team. What are we doing then? The main reason Memphis is in 11th place is because all the other teams have better coaching. Does anyone believe Phoenix, Minnesota, or the Clippers have a better roster than Memphis? No, they don't. They really don't. That's why I say coaching does matter. As far as Kleiman thing, we're probably not going to hear from him unless something happens. But yeah, Cat can absolutely play the 4. He can definitely play the 4. Even when they had Gobert. I mean, look, we can talk about the Gobert and Cat scenario and things like that. Obviously, Cat had his moments in the playoffs where he didn't really look the greatest, but at the end of the day, they did make the Western Conference Finals. So you have to get credit right there. And even then, Rudy Gobert compared to Zach Edey. I shouldn't even have to say anything. You get where I'm going with that. Next comment says, let's play basketball, guys. That's what we are about. Everyone needs to refocus, put down the rocks, and let's get at it. This team can still have a reasonable season. That is very true. Literally, they just have to get it right, get it back right now. Like I said, the injuries are slowing down. You got to take advantage of this. Obviously, Kleiman has to do his job as well. Isla has to do his job. This isn't just on the players. This is on everybody to do their job. And if they can't do that, then we're just going to be in a tough spot like we have been all season. Next comment says, I'm not local to Memphis. I live in North Alabama, so I don't get as much Grizz coverage in my local sports media as I like. Somebody recommended this show on the Grizzlies subreddit, and I'm glad they did. It was an instant like and subscription for me after catching this. I really appreciate that, man. I really do. Really appreciate that. I didn't even know we was on the subreddit like that, so I'm very, very happy to hear that. Glad the platform is expanding and you guys are tuning in. Like I said, right now, I guys should look at it. We have 764 subscribers. Look, if y'all really rock with the channel, let's try to get this to 800 by the end of the month. If we make it to 800 by the end of the month, I really appreciate all y'all for that. If we don't, hey, I still love all y'all. No problems. Next comment says, I think Kleiman can only do so much as a GM. You also have to remember that Melton, Anderson, Adams, and Brooks were all coming up for extensions. Tyrus was already getting paid a lot for a backup. On top of that, Brooks was on a discount because his first contract was a steal, especially when people thought he was about to get $80 million. I do remember that time. I do definitely remember that. Yeah, I try to give him. I give him grace with the Kyle Anderson and the Steven Adams deals because, look, as much as I didn't really want Steven Adams to go, they already played at a risk with him not getting the surgery and things like that, and then him being out for as long as he was. And I think as of now, he's actually hurt again. And then Kyle Anderson, I knew Kyle Anderson was replaceable. It's just, you just have to find a veteran that's similar to him. So that's why I say I'll give grace to those 2 deals. Melton, on the other hand, I really feel like we could have still worked something out to where we kept Melton. That's just really how I feel when it comes to that, because I really did like the Anthony Melton on his team. Not only was he a defensive guy that, sometimes guarded the best offensive player, he was also a guy that really started the transition offense even when Ja was behind on a play. That's why Ja really caught a bunch of those lobs. So it's something that, I hate to see it, but that's where we're at right now. Next part of the comment says Ja and Jaren were also on discounted deals. Ja didn't make All NBA, and Jaren signed his first contract coming off a major injury. That flexibility helped a lot of the time. I actually think this next phase would be better for Kleiman now that these situations are behind him. The Kuminga trade is a little iffy to me. I think he wants to be a starter defensively. It makes sense, but I'm not sold on his offense, especially his shot. Off the bench, though, he'd be great. He probably cost us all diamond, maybe a first. Still, he'd be valuable guarding Shea with all switching. And honestly, with the whole Kuminga thing, I don't even think it's more so about him just being a starter. I mean, let's be real. This is a guy. Look, he was on the same team as Jimmy. He's on the same team as Jimmy Butler. I think he knew he wasn't starting. Granted, yes, everybody wants to be a starter, but I think Kuminga just right now at the point he just wants to play. I really think he just wants to play. And honestly, quite frankly, with this Grizzlies team, you don't even have to be a starter to get many minutes. Look at Santi Aldama. He's coming off the bench having 30-plus. Kuminga can get that. Obviously, Santi is having 30-plus minutes because Edey's hurt and the front court isn't really beefed up. But it's definitely possible for him to still get very valuable minutes. It's just a matter of what he wants to do. Last part of his comment says, honestly, if the Grizzlies can stay under 30 losses by All-Star break and get healthy, they can get to the 4th seed. Teams 4 through 6 are very vulnerable, especially the Timberwolves and Rockets, and I really believe we can beat anyone with fully healthy. I'm not sure why people are scared of the top 3, even the Spurs and Nuggets, Jokic included. I think we're better than them when we were right. Ooh. Okay, the Spurs, I'll give you that. I will give you the Spurs because even then, we've always kept it close to the Spurs. The Nuggets, I don't know. It's something about Jokic, man. It's something about him. But I do agree with the majority of this comment. I think if they keep it level-headed once remotely healthy, then we're looking at a team that can make a push late in the season. It's possible. They just have to figure it out. Next comment says, I wish I knew these players' games enough to feel like I could really speak on them. I haven't heard a single well-known name mentioned that I would want. In my opinion, Jaren is a good bit better than Cat if he's trying for most of the game. That just reminded me, every player that jogs back during clutch time and transition just to get dunked on needs to be traded eventually for this team to be a contender. Yeah, that Anthony Black play was rough, especially considering Santi was like right there under the rim and just didn't even try. That was a rough play. Honestly, it's really not difficult to kind of hear about these guys from being real. You just kind of have to catch a game every now and then, or just keep up to date on Twitter. Great account that I follow when it comes to learning how players play, Brett Usher. We've already talked about him on this channel before. He's one of the best Twitter accounts on NBA Twitter. He talks about literally any player and what the best parts of their game. And he's where I get most of my thoughts of who I want the Grizzlies to have on the roster. That doesn't mean I go after every person he posts, but at the same time, I look at him, I think about it, do the research, and it's like, okay, maybe this player fits here. So I'd recommend you do that. As far as the Jaren and Cat thing, like I said, if a deal were to happen, I wouldn't be too mad. I just think you wouldn't really get much of a game changer out of Cat, and maybe that's just me. I don't know. All right, and this will be the last comment right here. It says, I've said for years Mikal Bridges is the playmaker and shot creator that we need on this team. If we can package a contract for Jaren and John Conchar for him and Mitchell Robinson, I think it's a win and the trade works out financial-wise. We get rid of 2 overrated players who underdeserve and underneeded contracts, and in the future we can hopefully package Robinson with KCP, and that should get a forward that can pair well with Zach like Khalil Ware. Yeah, no, I've always been a fan of Mikal Bridges on the Grizzlies. I remember one year, I think it was a year he actually went to the Knicks. I did want us to make a play for Mikal Bridges, especially, because I think this was around the time where I was really frustrated with Dylan Brooks, and I really wanted us to get Mikal Bridges. So, yeah, if there's a way they can package for that, I wouldn't mind that. Obviously, you get rid of Jaren and John Conchar. I mean, Conchar we already kind of knew was tradable. Jaren, you kind of move on from him and you get Mikal and Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson is a very good energy guy, very good guy that doesn't mind coming off the bench, especially with Zach Edey being in the starting lineup. I think he'd be very good for this team right here. And I'd say, and I wouldn't even package him with KCP. I would keep Mitchell Robinson. He is a guy. He's a reason why, Knicks fans honestly stay hopeful. If we being real, Knicks fans will tell you Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, Carl Towns, yada, all those players. But when come playoff time, Mitchell Robinson is the reason they are getting far as they do. Obviously, you have Jalen Brunson getting the points and everybody else doing this and that. But when it comes to keeping possessions alive, Mitchell Robinson is that dude. Obviously, wish he had a better offensive game, especially from the free throw line, but I think he'd be very good for this Grizzlies team. So I'd love to know y'all thoughts on that one. But that's going to wrap up this edition of Grizzlies Daily. I really appreciate y'all for tuning in. Like I said, if you like this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. We are almost at 800 subscribers, so let's try to hit that by the end of the month, hopefully. And once again, shout out to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. If you want to score $75 in bonus entries by depositing your first five, you scan this QR code here or use promo code BasketballFan, but you have to download the Underdog app today. Simple as that. As for this edition of Grizzlies Daily, I will see y'all tomorrow. Peace.